A very warm welcome to you all. I saw a lady that came in from Norway this morning, and yesterday we had some great side events from the NUS and SMU in the morning and afternoon, and we had some wonderful discussions. So thank you so much for making your way down and spending the last few days. Abby, I know you came in from the US just 3 days ago, and you're flying off on Saturday, so thank you. We have guests from more than 30 countries today. Today and tomorrow. That's pretty amazing. And I should introduce myself. Well, for the people who have come in, they won't get to hear it. But I'm Eliza Kang, and I'm a volunteer with the AVPN, and I will be your host for the next 2 days. You'll be seeing a lot of me. People in the red lanyards are staff, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them for session breakouts and so on. So, please come in, have a seat. Yes. Well, welcome to AVPN's inaugural conference. I'm just going to start and go ahead because I'm just the host and the more important people will talk later. We're almost halfway through 2013. And in 2009, a friend of mine from Singapore told me that his private equity firm, CVC Capital Partners, was supporting the setup of an Asian venture philanthropy network, the AVPN. I was like, wow, an Asian private equity firm getting involved in philanthropy? That's great. Well, he said it was being set up by a visionary individual called Doug Miller, who came from the private equity world himself. And Doug had actually set up the EVPA some 6 years ago. Back then, I was still in Zurich, and my UBS philanthropy colleagues had already heard of the good work that was being done by the EVPA to encourage philanthropic activity. And they were basically using an investment-minded, active engagement and performance-based model, the model of venture philanthropy. Come on in. Well, individuals from venture capital, from family offices and foundations were being influenced by venture philanthropy in the US and coming together to nurture social entrepreneurs and investments. And guess what? It was happening in Singapore, 2009. So I knew back then that it was time to move back home from Switzerland. And true enough, in the last 3 years, we've seen a tremendous increase in awareness and activity in venture philanthropy, in social entrepreneurship and impact investing in this region because of the pioneers like the AVPN. So I heard a great comment yesterday from John Forsyth. I'm not sure if he's here in the room. I hope not. Well, anyway, pardon me if, John, you're here from the Richard Chandler Corporation, but pardon me for misquoting you in advance. But he was so eloquent, and he said something like, if we could allocate money in a commercial manner for social and philanthropic benefit, with the help of the local expertise of NGOs and partnerships with governments, and engage the community to develop intellectual capital, capacity building networks, and access to essential services, that would be something of a magic formula. Yeah. Rob, I think you're probably smiling because I'm misquoting this very badly. But just imagine, I'm sure I said it poorly, but this blend is what we're looking for and we're working towards. And it's also the theme of our conference today, blending philanthropic and investment capital. And in fact, perhaps the person sitting next to you might be coming from a different background. So how about everyone look to your left and right and ask the person next to you, ask them for their name, ask them for their current job and their previous job. And if you know them, it does not count, all right? So jump one if you don't know. Say hello, current job, previous job, and return the favor. Thank you. Fascinating, isn't it? All right, okay. It's 9:02. I think I did a pretty good job. All right, so thank you very much. That was very exciting. I hope you managed to get some contacts. So some of you might have noticed, well, maybe the displays are not up yet, but I'd just like to say that we are very proud to showcase 7 of our very own local Singaporean social enterprises today here at the AVPN conference. So I'll list the 7 of them out. 18 chefs. So they're a restaurant set up by Benny-Sito, and they just opened a new outlet at Orchard Cineleisure. The social enterprise hires ex-offenders. And I have to tell you, I've been there. The food is great. They have this signature heart attack fried rice that is to die for. No pun intended. There's A Changing, Adrenaline Events, Better Barista, which I think you would have had. They're serving coffee outside, Bliss Cafe, Dialogue in the Dark, and last but not least, Give SG. So please drop by and have a chat with the entrepreneurs during our breaks. Are you all seated? Comfortable? Introduce your neighbor? Good. Now, please make sure your cell phones are turned off into silent mode, and let's get started. So, in a few moments, we will have Doug Miller, founding chairman of the AVPN, open the conference with his welcome address. But first, it is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Tan Chi Chew, chairman of our lead partner, the Lien Center for Social Innovation, to say a few words. Dr. Tan?
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's very nice to see you here, and a warm welcome to all delegates, especially those of you who have come from outside of Singapore. We hope that your jet lag and your travel have not tired you out too much, but we do look forward to an extremely exciting event over the next day and a half, and we're sure that your attention will not only be captivated, but you will also be learning furiously over these next day or so. I am very grateful to the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network, or AVPN, for this opportunity to co-chair the seminal conference on creating social impact, blending philanthropic and investment capital. Great topic. At the outset, I congratulate AVPN for neatly dodging the definitional dilemmas that dog us between the terms venture philanthropy and impact investment through this clever title. I will not attempt to muddy the waters and say only that we are here to talk about investments that have common goals of impact, scalability, and sustainability, as well as the application of more professional and business models to achieve these goals. We all know that Asia's economic growth has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and improved the living conditions in many countries. In fact, today, Asia is perhaps the last bastion of positive economic performance, and the world is knocking on Asia's door to invest for returns that may no longer be available elsewhere. However, if investments are going to be limited to those that maximize profits as the chief goal of business, then we are headed for disaster. Disaster arising from the twin villains of social inequality and environmental degradation. So equitability and sustainability are the new watchwords. Here, I would like to quote the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Singapore Management University, in which Lien Center sits and which is hosting our conference today. Mr. Ho Kwong Ping said that, and I quote, "The mission of business and the purpose of growth is to build a better society for all." So herein lies the ideal. If out of the ashes of our economic crisis can arise a new business paradigm, a new social economic order that envisages that successful business and societal good are no longer mutually exclusive, but in fact two sides of the same coin, if we can do that, then we have considerable hope for our future. And I believe that society is now at an inflection point in history, and we are at the cusp of one of the most exciting periods of social economic development. Now, the complexity and magnitude of social problems that we face today demand a cross-sectoral approach, no one sector alone has the skills or capital to solve them. There are many aspects to be addressed, as you well know. For instance, growing the demand side by increasing the number of social entrepreneurs, and that requires, amongst other things, an enlightened culture that values the impact economy and capacity building for the non-profit sector. Then we have to influence government policies to provide us a conducive environment. We need to access new and larger sources of capital, and of course, we need to know how to measure to assess impact. All of this is an interdependent matrix. The development of all aspects is required for success. For instance, investors waiting in the wings would have few opportunities to make an impact if the substrate of social innovation in society is very poor. If the non-profit field is evolutionarily backward and uninspired, then social entrepreneurship will be lacking and social enterprises will be weak. There will be precious little then to invest in. Capacity building improves the investment readiness of potential investees to a level or a size attractive to investors. Capacity building can be very simple, often as basic as providing financial reporting systems that are able to absorb and account for the funds that come in and that meet the reporting requirements of the investors. On the part of the investors, they must themselves build the capacity to source and execute deals. At this stage of evolution, investing in social entities can be a labor-intensive affair requiring specialist knowledge at all stages of the process, from sourcing, through capacity building, due diligence and assessment, and of course, the post-investment monitoring and evaluation of performance. For international and regional investors who are still the primary source of funds, this is complicated by the multiple regulatory jurisdictions, markets, and cultures in which they must operate and understand in Asia. So, given the early stage of development of the social investment market in the region, each local market may not be able to develop or support on its own all the necessary infrastructure and capabilities within their own boundaries. There is therefore the need to develop the intermediary entities, such as enabling institutions, to aggregate knowledge and experience and to bridge some of these gaps. And here's where ABPN fulfills a highly critical role. Social finance is one of the fastest growing areas where the business and social sectors are beginning to intersect globally. Over the last few years, we have seen increasing interest in investing for social impact and the so-called impact economy, with many reports estimating the many billions of dollars that apparently could be put to good use for social issues. We also note the growth of the venture philanthropy movement in the US and in Europe. While these movements began in the West, they are now arriving in Asia and look set to accelerate growth here. For example, in Singapore, the President's Office has launched the inaugural President's Challenge for Social Enterprises in 2012 in an effort to highlight the efforts of social enterprises here. A number of enabling organizations have been set up, and a number of venture philanthropy and impact funds have recently been set up in Asia as well. All of these movements in the leverage private sector skills and capital to enable professionals and entrepreneurs of the social sector to have greater impact on whichever areas they're involved with. I would like to conclude my remarks by referring to the Monitor Institute's 2009 report, Investing for Social and Environmental Impact, which I thought gave a very crisp and pithy summary of the challenges the field faces. In brief, the report warns against two perils. On the one hand, the risk that impact investing will ultimately be too hard. It warns against hype, such as promising assured financial returns. It warns against sloppy thinking and poor execution, leading to a messy field, disappointing investors and regulatory authorities who will then give up. The second risk, on the other end of the extreme, is the risk that impact investing will ultimately be too easy. It warns that the definitions of social and environmental impact must not be allowed to become so loose and diluted as to be virtually meaningless, reducing the whole movement to a feel-good rather than a do-good exercise. I am confident that this conference will help us to avoid all these risks at either extreme. A word about the Lien Center for Social Innovation. Our objective is to catalyze innovative thought and action on social problems. Our position within SMU, with its close ties to the business sector, puts the center in a unique position to leverage the business sector and encourage it to take a more proactive role in addressing social issues in Asia. Lien Center aims to be a thought leader in this area, and we are currently embarking on our own study on the impact investing in venture philanthropy landscape in Southeast Asia. This study will look closely at current activities and challenges, and hopefully come up with suggestions for field infrastructure development and policies that could help evolve the field. And we hope to be able to share our findings with you in due course. And finally, Lien Center is very proud to co-host this event with AVPN, who is one of the major catalysts in building the field of impact investing in Asia. Thank you, and have a great morning.
I wasn't sure I could make that, but I thought if I didn't, everybody would have a good laugh anyway. Well, Chi-Chu, thank you for laying the basis and background for that, because that's why we're here, and there's a lot to think about. How many of you are the first time in Singapore? Okay. Everybody asks me that question, and I surprise them because I tell them that this is my 40th wedding anniversary this year. My wife should be here somewhere. Raise your hand. But she's late as usual. But anyway, I've been here roughly 120 times over the last 40 years, and I've seen the tremendous progress that's been made. I need to start by 5 thank yous. Thank you number 1 is for the Lien Center for being our host. Thank you number 2 for the SMU for providing such nice facilities. Number 3 for our speakers. We have 73 speakers from 18 countries. We're going to give a prize to the one who's traveled the furthest, but I think that's around 14,000 miles and 24 hours collectively, including a layover or 2. Number 4 is to the AVPN team. We have 4 people. Those 4 people not only responsible for delivering this conference, but for doing webinars and workshops and everything else we ask them to do. And they'll be very pleased to see Friday night arising. Lastly, I consider everybody in this auditorium to either be a pioneer or a prospective pioneer. And I have 3 themes that I want to get across in this opening. One of them is about pioneership. The second one is about collective action. And the third one is about opportunity. And those all 3 tie together. Now, if you thought jumping on the stage was a challenge, this next one is tougher, because if I hit the wrong button, we're going to be in trouble. But fortunately, I didn't. We're in trouble because I don't know how these things work in terms of getting back to where I should be. So pioneers. The world needs pioneers. So what is a pioneer? Well, you've got pioneers in science, in engineering, in medical. We believe you need pioneers in the course of social investment, and we define social investment as being either in the nonprofit sector or in the social enterprise sector. And that is the opportunity. So pioneers have a vision. The vision of a pioneer is either to correct something that they see is wrong or to develop an opportunity. So what characteristics do pioneers need to have? Number 1, they need to be prepared to take risks and to explore beyond their personal comfort zone. And in Asia, sometimes that's actually a challenge, because taking a risk involves the risk of failure, and what we need to do is encourage more risk takers who are prepared to fail, but we need to also encourage society to accept failure without a stigma. We need people to develop new ideas. We need people to develop startups. Some of those will undoubtedly fail, but learn from that failure and try again. Those that do work well, we need them to scale, because the other issue that I see, and we're in 36 countries now, is everything is too small. And what we're trying to do is encourage other people to scale and then collectively come together to create scale in a sector. We are looking for leaders and role models, and my next slide will show you how difficult it is to get leaders and role models. But leaders and role models are people who get out front, and those people encourage others to get engaged. These conferences are nice, and I go to awards, seminars, conferences, but what we need to do is to make things happen. So one of the takeaways that I would hope everybody would come away with is the learning, but then to go out and take risks and take action. This basically profiles the conference attendees. You can see that we come from a very wide base in terms of foundations, family offices, investment management, private equity, corporate CSR. And that is by design. We want to be a broad church, and my next slide will cover why. But everybody here is, and we're overbooked. In fact, I'm surprised people are not sitting in the aisles, but that means people haven't shown up yet. But is either a supplier of financial, human, or intellectual capital. And sometimes when we talk about growing a sector, people talk about the financial capital, but in our belief, it's the human and intellectual capital that makes the major difference. The registered delegates, this says 330, but the last count I saw was about 345, and from 31 countries. And there's a list outside, and I think we supplied a list on Friday or Monday, so you can see who they are. This slide shows about engagement, and we believe that getting together and having a good conference and feeling good is nice, but our objective is to move interest to engagement and engagement to action. So when we started the EVPA, and Rob, who's sitting up there and is doing work in Singapore, was very helpful and worked with me on that. The first year we actually had 14 members, and we thought, I do a lot of walking in the mountains, but we thought, this is a steep mountain. Next year it was maybe 30, the next year it was 45, and then most people are what I call fence sitters or skeptics. What they want to do is they want to wait and see if it works. Well, if you ever think about it, if you wait and see what it works, and everybody waits, nothing happens. So thank you for those first 14 and the first 60. And the EVPA is now somewhere over 160 members. So we built upon that with launching the AVPN. And we had a study done by Bain. We had all sorts of pro bono support. And after all sorts of professional advice and thoughts among ourselves and our directors, we thought that if we could get to 60 in the first year, that was a definition of success. So Asians are early adopters. They're prepared to get out there, and we actually hit 120 from 20 countries in the first year. And the number I've told people up until last week was around 125 members, but we're getting members, including 2 yesterday from Korea, so I think we're basically at around 134 today. So between the EVPA and the AVPN, we're approaching 300, and it's now in 36 countries. Who has not seen this slide before? Okay, well, there's a fair number. The others of you who've seen it 25 times, I apologize. But this slide basically is our core. Okay, this is what we do. And what we're about is building a broad-based platform. And we call those yellow things silos. Those are supposed to represent silos. And you can see it's from the corporate sector, the foundation, government, private equity, Wealth asset management is, that's our definition for family offices and private professional service firms. But we believe that all of these different silos are well networked within them, but they're not necessarily referenced and cross-networked. So what we do is we want to break silos and we want to get people to work together. And why do we want to do that? Well, because people from the foundation sector know a lot about the social sector. People from the investment management community know about investment. Corporate people know about CSR, professional service firms. And if you can break those silos and get people to work together, you're bringing different experiences, different networks, different areas of expertise together, and you can produce more in the way of impact. And that's what we're about. VPOs, I have to remember what that stands for, but it's Venture Philanthropy Organizations. A lot of people think that that's funds. Well, it is some funds, and I have a slide later on in the conference which breaks down our practicing members, and what you see is we break them down between funds, family offices, and foundations, because you can do venture philanthropy without actually having a fund. This slide basically profiles our members, so it's probably based on 125 because it's out of date. But we ask each member, what area are you focusing on? What are you interested in? And you can see that education and children, roughly 40%, and then we have other ones in environment, economic development. But the two key takeaways from this slide is that venture philanthropy can apply in any sector. Old people, recidivism, people with learning disabilities, environmental development, etc. So we're agnostic, and the methodology can be applied everywhere. The second takeaway is on the bottom. Our members support both nonprofits and social enterprises. So we're also agnostic about the business model, but what we do say is you've got to carefully define the business model. A lot of social enterprises, when you unpick it and take the complexity away, are actually charities, because a social enterprise ultimately needs to be cash flow positive. Cash flow positive means you're sustainable and scalable. Now, there's a huge role for charities and nonprofits, and there's a huge role of social enterprises, but part of the things that our members do is actually understand the difference between the two and adopt their funding accordingly. Okay, last slide, and I haven't screwed this thing up yet. The reason we're putting this conference on is that we want to build the industry. So this is the opportunity. We think that collectively we can do more together than we can as individual lone rangers. So we think that by providing a networking opportunity, and it's up to you as to how much you network, but we hope that that's a lot, that you'll identify people who have common interests. The second thing that we believe is that by knowledge sharing of best practice and innovation and operational improvements, each of our members can actually improve what they are doing. And I go all over the world, and I see people recreating the same wheel everywhere I go. And I say, learn from others. Asian industry developed by learning what was happening in the West and then doing it better and doing it with more innovation. So copy from others. That doesn't mean that you don't have your own innovation, but it means that it probably exists somewhere in the world. So innovate it in Asia. Inspiration. Many of the speakers you're going to see today have been in this business for 5, 10, 15 years, and you're going to be kind of in awe. But is Kim in the audience? There she is. Okay. She's from one of the most experienced and well-established organizations in the U.S., market leader, and today has 200 million of collective commitments from their investors. And I guess this is public because you said it in public yesterday. But I asked her at a seminar we were running for some Singapore government officials, I said, so when you started, how much cash did you have? And she said, well, actually, we were making commitments before we had cash. So technically, that's illegal. And I certainly would never do that in Singapore. But all I'm saying is that you can draw inspiration and don't be in awe of these people who do it. What you have to do is you have to have the guts and the courage to say, not to make commitments when you don't have it, but to start small and to grow. And then fun. I've been working for, well, over 40 years, that's all I'll tell you. And I'm working harder now than I ever worked. And that's because this is fun, and you get this feeling that you're actually contributing something to society. And so have fun at the conference, but come away with takeaways. And at the end, figure out what you're going to do different to be more successful. So thank you very much. And I hope everybody can last the course. And I'll be giving the final thing at about 12:15 tomorrow. And if I can make it, I'm sure that the rest of you can make it. Thank you.